The numbers start clicking, and it'll do this if you're not recording. So, we are now on. Would you like me to introduce you?
Sure.
No, I don't mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Wait a minute, I have a secret weapon here.
Oh, please. Exit, everybody. We surrender.
Thank you. I said Alan Harris is a wonderful poet in case people didn't understand me through my harmonica.
All right, Alan.
Give him a round of applause. He's going to be cozy tonight.
I'm going to be reading a short story that I wrote. I'll be reading it in two parts. This is part one. Duh.
Is that the name of the part?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
I had just dropped on Eddy Street, an old Asian lady I'd picked up at General Hospital. She spoke in English so broken it was hardly recognizable as modern language, but I appreciated the effort. It seemed to take a lot out of her slight, weathered frame to try and communicate with me, all huddled up in the back seat in her heavy woolen coat, clutching a vinyl handbag so tightly it must have had the meaning of life inside one of its pockets. But fortunately, she had a taxi voucher from social services with her destination on it, one of the rundown, indigent-friendly residential hotels in the Tenderloin, far enough east that you could smell the consumerism wafting over from the tourist traps in big-name department stores in Union Square. So the need for any real communication was minimal. She smiled when I picked her up, and again when stopped at a traffic light, I turned in my seat and looked at her. "You all right?" I asked. Her smile widened a bit, and she nodded creakily. When we got within a block of her building, she pointed ahead and croaked anxiously, "Here, here, here, here." You know, my guess is that she's in a constant worry that every time she leaves home, she'll never see it again. I gave her a thumbs up, and there was silence. After helping her out of the back seat, a process that seemed to take a week, she moved that slowly, I watched her until she disappeared inside the dankness of the lobby, at which time her fragile well-being was no longer my responsibility. It had been that kind of day, my kind of day. Mostly dropping off or picking up at hospitals and doctors' offices, going out into the far reaches of the neighborhoods to where the elderly and or infirmed were essentially cut off from public transportation, depending on the goodness of heart of those like myself, drivers who, rather than hang out at the airport or sit in line at a hotel looking for that big out-of-towner fare, would rather contribute something to the small town as opposed to the big city aspects of San Francisco. I was thinking about my next move, maybe a cruise through Union Square, picking up a big fat pretzel from one of the hot dog carts, trying its best not to look like it's part of a global corporate machine, and then possibly getting a flag that'll pay for my trip out of downtown. All plans were scuttled, however, as my computer beeped its way into my consciousness, alerting me to the fact that there was an order on Ellis, an address I recognized as belonging to one of the area's numerous social services centers. That most likely meant another voucher order, which was fine with me, as long as it wasn't a passenger's debt accumulating on the meter right before his or her eyes. He or she wouldn't care what route I took. It was a grayish, worn-out single-story, looking, as did many of these city buildings devoted to helping the poor, like it's about to cave in on itself. Standing in front of the building was a tall, thin, blonde guy dressed entirely in black, except, that is, for a pair of tan work shoes that looked as if they'd seen better days. He straightened and waved feebly when he saw me pulling up to the curb. I checked the name on the order. "Are you Arthur?" I asked. He had a face that looked like it wanted to jump off the front of his skull. The skin had so many red blotches they looked ready to throw in with each other and form one big blotch. His nose was splayed out enough that it threatened to annex his cheekbones, and his watery eyes had a vibrating quality, as if they were absorbing sound as well as visual stimuli. "Yeah, are you my cab?" His voice had a hoarseness that coordinated perfectly with his appearance. Booze, cigarettes, sodium, the toll from these and a lot more could be heard in it. Ignoring the stupid question, he asked, "No, dumb shit, I'm not your cab. I'm here to do a pre-interview before your cab arrives." I nodded and pointed to the back seat with my thumb. He opened the back door and awkwardly climbed in. I gave it a moment, and when he didn't volunteer the information, asked him where he was going. He took a deep breath, and I knew then that there would be complications. "I got 2 stops, he began, and he held up 2 fingers backwards as a visual aid. That's the way the British flip people off, but I'm going to assume that he didn't know that. "First, I got to swing by the men's shelter at 5th and Brannan to pick up my stuff. Then I want to go to the women's shelter on DeVos and hook up with my girlfriend. Do you know where that is? I knew it well. It was a small brown box-like building sitting by itself on a lot underneath the long freeway overpass that runs along that whole street, creating a kind of tunnel effect. The acoustics were such that the constant rumbling of freeway traffic could be heard ricocheting back and forth and up and down the street. This must do wonders for the shelter's clientele, women whose nerves are already frayed from being poor and homeless and perpetually vulnerable. Were you given a voucher, sir? I asked, knowing that those things come with restrictions, like no waiting time and no multiple stops. I got these, he said, pulling from his jacket pocket 3 sheets of those small beige coupons that the city gives out to organizations that provide services to poor folk. I took them from him. There's only $15 worth here, I informed him. With the waiting time and all, this won't cover the whole trip. A loud, ragged grumble came from somewhere in his chest. I was anticipating an eruption of phlegm, which thankfully never arrived. Damn it, that's all I got to work with! No cash? No! Credit card? I knew the answer. I got a debit card, but it doesn't have any money on it. There was a low, impatient grumble this time. How much more can it be? I did a quick calculation. Approximately how much of my time $15 usually covers, how much of my time this trip could and should take, and where I was at in the day financially. In other words, can I afford to be a good person? Okay, I'll do the whole thing for $15. But, and I turned around to look at him for emphasis, no drama. You understand? He held up a hand as if taking a pledge. Its skin was rough, calloused, peeling in spots. Oh no drama. Just in and out at Brannan, and then on to DeVos. Just in and out at Brannan, and then on to DeVos. I swear it. I could tell by the robotic eagerness with which he repeated what I said that he was just saying what he thought I wanted to hear, which meant that, of course, there would be drama. Let me have the coupons, I said, holding out my hand. I wanted to make sure I got my payment up front so that I could have the freedom to extricate myself from this situation anytime I wanted. The shelter where Arthur had been staying was a long, dark blue building that took up half a square block. And that is the end of part 1. Thank you.
Thank you. So he's going to finish that as the closer, since he is the clincher closer, super duper bulldozer. Also, Brown, thank you. Woo! I was going to try to stop the clock before it happened and give you a signal, but I was engrossed. Jed is in the house. This is a new individual, ladies and gentlemen. Give him the treatment, the welcoming call. Hello.
I've been here before, actually, like.
Oh, we take it back.
3 months ago.
Oh, sorry. Well, I forgot. So it's all right. It's not my fault. I'm just a Republican.
All right. So I'm gonna perform like a series of short poems. I call it the Atlas of the Human Body. 1. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul, but when I look at yours, darling, I'm not looking inward. I'm looking out. I see 100 worlds unfold. I see galaxies orbiting your iris. I see possibilities, and I could just get lost staring. 2. Smell is the greatest trigger of memory. Ocean breeze for childhood, old pine for home, freshly roasted coffee for those lazy Sunday mornings, and all those nights of cramming, the strong scent of alcohol for those lonely Saturday nights. The ghost of you still lingers with each of my breathe-ins and breathe-outs. 3. Your mouth is an ocean, and I am a sailor drawn to your waves. Tell me, how many voyagers have your lips left shipwrecked? 4. There is a melody in the cracks of our knuckles, a crescendo in between the discs of our spine, a chorus in the creaks of our wrists and the grit of our teeth. Our bones are instruments, and you have made a symphony in my breaking. 6. Apoptosis. Our bodies are countdown clockworks, born to heal, programmed to die. 7, I have run out of eyelashes to wish upon. 7, why do we still care so much for our skin when it's already dead? 7, I have bitten my nails so far back my fingers started to bleed. 7, how do I scrub this thing clear of all the scars, the blemishes, the bruises, the fingerprints left behind, the scent that still lingers, the hands, the fingers, the strangers, the men, you. 8, the heart is the strongest muscle. Shoulders grow weary from bearing all of the weight. The tongue cloys, the gut bloats after too much of a drink. Even the breath can only be held for so long until the lungs gasp for air, but the heart does not stop for rest. You still have to fight for as long as it keeps beating. 9, when I assisted in my first autopsy case, our pathologist let me hold the brain of a 4-year-old. He started to discuss its anatomy. Here are the left and right hemispheres, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, the medulla, the brainstem. And I know how the cerebrum is the seat of cognition, or how the cerebellum controls all motor functions, or how the brain in all its spongy tissue glory is protected by the cranium, which he had me drilled earlier. But at that moment, I cannot wrap my head around how I am holding the core of that person's every bodily function. Here is his consciousness, in every fold a memory forgotten, in every wrinkle a sensation unfelt, in each hemisphere potentials untapped, in every fissure dreams unrealized, for every inclination a breath cut shorter. And I have deeply realized how we are more than just a heap of skin and flesh and bones. There are constellations riddled across the anatomies of our bodies, and somewhere, sleeping within this numerous nuclei, lie universes undiscovered. 10, I am a traveler, and there are wonders tucked within each square inch of tissue. Every cell a tourist, every organ a destination, every system a landmark. Your body is an atlas, and I suddenly have an indescribable urge to navigate the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Come back. And now my co-host Rob is going to get up there. Give him a round as he comes up. Then we got Sharon, Buford, our Minnie, Hal, Garrett, Bill, and we have to have you on there. You didn't put... Chris. Okay. Christian. That's right. All right. There we go. Let me focus in on him.
It can be very educational to really try to follow the theme of the night. You can learn about yourself, because I'm going through my book. Okay, you poems. Yeah. It's either me poems, no, not me poems, you poems. So here we go. This first one is called 4 Girlfriends. I've got 4 girlfriends, but I'd give them up for you. If love hoarding appeals to your Darwinian view. Radhika gives me rubbing. Bethany brings blank checks. Suki is so silly and smart. And Berzika is pure sex. But I'll drop them all for you, if that's what you want me to do. Though they might love you too. Suki would never let you be blue. And I am a bit high maintenance. Massage plus 2-hour sex each day. And you really might like Berzika. I'll be frank, she goes either way. But I'll give them up for you if your caring precludes sharing. I only want 11 kids. Are you ready? Are you raring? And this is called No One There. I searched my spirit high and low, found a truth I could not bear. When I lost my pretense and vanity, I found there was no one there. Friendship, desire, pity, scorn, beneath all for which we care, Absent pretense and vanity, it evaporates into air. Everyone you've loved or hated, what's the one thing they share? Strip away pretense and vanity, you'll find there's no one there. And this is called Uninvoiced. If I told you I was falling in love, but it doesn't mean what you thought, would you let me babble a moment to love you like I ought? Every time you've heard those words, every movie, commercial, or song came with an attached invoice, a silent plea just as strong. I'm falling in love, babe, I love you so true, is but part the brew. The other half, the unspoken part, so what you gonna do? I don't care what you do or don't. I don't care what you will or won't. I'm falling in love with you, you see. But I know that's just biology. Loving someone is hard. Falling in love, E-A-S-E-E. Obviously, I like you. That's why I wrote this poetic star. Obviously, you like me too, or you'd not have read this far. So in all simplicity, I simply say, if there's any kindness or help I can give you today, I'm at your service. I'll come right away. And if there's nothing you need, then I am happy to be just a happy fool falling for thee. And finally, this is called It's Okay. Even drunks in a bar know you're no movie star. Guess what? It's okay. It's okay. No one offers their gold just to have you to hold. Guess what? It's okay. It's okay. Not the deepest tool in the human gene pool. Guess what? It's okay. It's okay. More lard body than hard body, of ill repute or destitute, vilified or pushed aside, abused or confused. It's okay. It's okay. I promise you, it's okay. This poem fucking loves you. That's all I came to say.
That's Rob, ladies and gentlemen, my co-pilot of the evening. Give him a nice one. Thank you. Sharon, oh, you know you're here. Give a nice round for Sharon. She's going to come up here and just deliver like always.
This one's called Donuts. Widow Wentworth was a strange but nice old lady. Her husband, Homer, had made his fortune in banking, and when he married his wife, Vivian, they brought together a beautiful grand house on Chestnut Street. Having no children, when Horace died, Vivian was left by herself. Friends came, they moved, they died. But still she stayed on. The children in the neighborhood loved her. She was something like Granny. Where were Sylvester and Tweetyburg? That's what she looked like. Usually someone in the neighborhood did errands for her or took her where she needed to go. We loved her. In the evenings, she would sit in her parlor in front of the painting of Horace, and she would talk to him. She would cry, she would sing, she would tell him of the day. And she would ask questions of him, many questions. How did we know? She would tell us. And if she didn't tell us, in the springtime, when it was warm and we were allowed to stay out a little bit later, we would sneak over to her house and we would listen through the crack window. And we would listen to her weep and cry and talk of her love for him. So many memories she would relate to him, even more questions of what to do. She was a regular on Janice and Sharon's stop. And they were in the neighborhood. And it was easy since she lived across the street from Janice. Well, in the spring, the parents let you stay out a little bit later, and it's warm in the middle of May. And so the kids go out and they wander around. So Janice and Sharon decide to wander over to the widow's house. And instead of standing on the box, they go on the wraparound porch and they look through the window. And she's there, and she's talking, and she's singing, and she's rocking. And then she asks, what should I do? And would I do something for the children? They've been so kind, they've been so good. Yeah, we marked on the walls, but she didn't know. So Janice and Sharon look at each other, and they say, in little ghostly voices, buy the kids some donuts. Buy the kids some donuts. And they leave. Saturday morning, everybody's out. Lawns are being mowed. And finally, after all the chores are done, you're next door. And they're all lined up on the porch for piano lessons. Screeching, horrible, banging, clanging piano lessons. Up drives the pastry truck. Two guys get out with boxes and boxes, pink boxes of donuts. And then she invites the kids over, they all have milk, and they say, thank you, how did you know? And she says, a little bird told me.
Sharon, thank you. All right. This brings us to our mini feature, Mr. Buford Bunton, if he'll kindly come up. And so he'll be going on for a little longer than the open. Then we got Hal, Garrett, Bill, and Christian before Alan closes us off.
Why do I have to prove that I love you all the time? I'll do anything for you. Bend over like a champion acrobat to please you. The sun is shining. It's a cool, good-looking day like you and your wild, protruding eyes. Yet sarcastic anger brought on by abuse. You say you've suffered. Why then that you can't yield except someone who loves you? Is it that you think you need a man who could give you baubles to adorn what is already a nice face and a shortish, well-curved facade? I want you to be well on the inside so that we can have a better, healthier life together, even if we don't live in the same house. We do sort of live in the same world of artists and teachers, you and me. Old stuff, but I like it.
Well, good.
This is Thanksgiving Day. This is appropriate, I think. This was written Thanksgiving Day 2008. It's called Every Day. You write every day, don't you? The big man with the Louisiana accent inquires. I think he's in the room, actually. I've typed a poetry chapbook for him back in my work-study student days. I sit down, don't type things out much, mostly written in pen, cheaper than having to pay for Kinko's or some other conglomerate. It does make things faster. Well, my poet friend remarks, every day I write as every day things happen. This is about my substituting. This is my substituting days. I now have a regular job where I go in and try to make high school kids who are very unhappy happy. But this is called 7-year-old. A 7-year-old hugs me at the end of the day. I've helped him with math, not my best subject when I was in school myself. I've taken blue Montessori cubes and put them on the table where we have worked. How many cubes are they? I ask him. He counts, then raises his crew-cut covered head. 6, he answers correctly. I want to do one more old one. Horribly. Well, that's not the old one. Hold on. The old one, you can tell because they all went so fast. The new one's not in that great shape either, but I write every day and I mangle them and I get emotional about them, which I do often. When you call meeting, no, I don't have a girlfriend, I tell you, and chuckle, but it's not really funny. You want your diploma and your transcripts, and there's really nothing I can do about it, and I guess I feel bad about that, and I really shouldn't. I see your beautiful, trying not to be perturbed face scrunching up. We're using up my limited cell phone minutes, and I'm trying not to talk too fast. I only go there when I have to work because it depresses me, I say to you and your big mound of hair, or perhaps the flattened out version that makes you look a lot younger than 45. What's the point of all of it? I feel, and my former workmate who came by a couple of days ago reminds me that life's pretty good, and I just got paid and the money's almost gone already. The kids are cute, and I love helping them, I tell you. There's a new job that doesn't ever seem to start, but demands a syllabus. There's a whatever she is giving me a hard time about not cleaning up in the old job, even though the $200 she gave me 2 months ago is, of course, long gone. It's too hot for the thick athletic jacket I have on as I write this, but hey, as you put it, you've been suicidal not that long ago. Your life sucks, and Kenny's life sucks, and the whatever she is life sucks. And compared to all that, I'm doing pretty well. I just have to get the textbook for my new potential employer and walk to my substitute job with the special ed kids. Life is bunched up and challenging, and I'm hanging in there. How much time do I have? Anything?
Yeah, I got about a minute or so.
Okay, let me see. I love that old stuff, so let me read a new one now.
I'll get it.
I'm sorry. But thank you.
Yeah.
You text me. You text me again and again, and I want to come by for a sleepover, or if I'm lucky, several sleepovers and a couple of babies. I say I can only handle one, and really, I'm not sure I can do that. My 44-year-old daughter completely out of the house for 28 years with her own almost 11-year-old kid. If I want that, I'll ask for it, or at least let you ask.
All right. Thanks. Buford Bunnan, ladies and gentlemen. And that brings us to the Dr. Hal Robbins, or Dr. Hal, or Dr. Robbins, or Hal Robbins, or Hal. Hal Pal.
Hal,
as he
yes.
called in Pennsylvania. No, never mind. Stop. I'm going to stop that right now.
Not there.
Not Pennsylvania.
Well, David Edreich isn't here, but he set us the task of the theme, I Slipped You into a Poem.
Yes.
And here, with this selection, the verb slipped has some relation to that. The Princess by Tennyson. Now sleeps the crimson petal, now the white, nor waves the cypress in the palace walk, nor winks the gold fin in the porphyry font. The firefly wakens, waken thou with me. Now droops the milk-white peacock like a ghost, and like a ghost she glimmers unto me. Now lies the earth all Danae to the stars, and all thy heart lies open unto me. Now slides the silent meteor on, and leaves a shining furrow as thy thoughts in me. Now folds the lily all her sweetness up, and slips into the bosom of the lake. So fold thyself, my dearest thou, and slip into my bosom, and be lost in me.
Yeah.
The word Poseidonus in this next poem is the name that the inhabitants of Atlantis, described by Plato, called their country. Atlantis was the largest of a series of islands, supposedly beyond the Pillars of Hercules, all of which sank. The island of Atlantis last of all, and their god, their chief god, was Poseidon, the lord of earthquakes and the ocean, which turned out to be unfortunate for them. But this is by Clark Ashton Smith about a minor god, Ugabalis. In billow lost Poseidonis, I was the god Ugabalis. My 3 horns were of Similor above my double diadem. My one eye was a moon-wan gem found in a monstrous meteor. Incredible far peoples came, called by the thunders of my fame, and fleetly passed my terraced throne, where Titan pards and lions stood, as pours a never-lapsing flood before the wind of winter blown. Before me many a chorister made offering of alien myrrh, and copper-bearded sailors brought from isles of ever-foaming seas enormous lumps of ambergris and corals intricately wrought. Below my glooming architraves, one brown eternal file of slaves came in from mines of Chalcedon, and camels from the long plateaus laid down their sard and peridos, their incense and their cinnamon. But now, within my sunken walls, the slow, blind ocean serpent crawls, and sea worms are my ministers, and wandering fishes pass me now, or press before mine eyeless brow, as once the thronging worshippers. Thank you.
Hal Robbins. Dr. Hal. brings us to Garrett Murphy. Then we have Bill and Christian before Alan's return. Mr. Garrett Murphy. Oh, Hal. Oh, you already did that. Thank you.
Dr. Palmer, we presume. Like all the gleeful quacks of his kind, Walter Palmer fantasizes about his quest. He wants to share glory too, to be sanctified by the organization known as the System. He sets out to Zimbabwe for jungle glory. He bags a big one, a really big one. Not only a king, but the most renowned one. Walter has bagged his own game. He returns to his old glory, wreaked home with pride in his heart and beating on his chest. But wait a minute, something is very wrong here, and it will cost Walter dearly. For you see, in his quest for ultimate sanctification, it appears that Walter, in his haste, shot dead an African lion. That black thing must have fooled him. Now, instead of the sanctification he was craving from the System, Walter is now public enemy number one on the run. He didn't realize he could only be sanctified by the System had he killed an African human. And unlike Beanie, he cannot yelp for help. Cecil can't help him now or anymore. Cecil was the one whom Walter shot dead in his misguided quest for System sanctification. Sailing on the SSUS. So, you wanted to see them profiled, and you wanted to see them scrutinized, and you want them to lose just a little of their liberty, all because you want to be safe. You say it's such a minor inconvenience, and you say it can't be all that bad, just a matter of being careful, and besides, we're all in the same boat. But if you really focusing specifically at them, and then claiming this to be the land of the free, then get that just as still for an exception to that catchphrase, while oblivious and non-accepting exceptions for you. I fear, my friend, there's more than one boat around here.
Garrett Murphy. And now our feature of next week, Mr. Bill Mercer, will kindly come forward and hold forth for a fifth before we have Christian and then Alan coming back, as we say.
And the ladder here.
Ladder.
That's better.
I just have one short poem.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And it's short.
Okay. Is it a poem?
And it's a point.
I'm good.
All of the above. All of the above.
You spell that? What you want me to spell?
Oh, that was Richard Sanderell trying to get your goat.
Yes.
He can't have my goat. I'm saving my goat for later.
Yeah.
Well, the title of this poem is Tell Me Love Poems Aren't Revolutionary. It's by Susan Berkman. When money is over, who are you? Sometimes a kiss, sometimes a catastrophe. Inside, outside, oh my darling. Big door opens in the middle of the night. Perfect pitch in every language. Home is where you come to me, and I return most naturally. Listening to the song we came in on. God lays down in the Euphrates, his root, her water. When money is over, sometimes a kiss. Our days more and more like this.
What was the name of that? What was the name of the poem?
Tell me Normally, love poems aren't revolutionary.
Okay, thank you. All right. I just gotta make sure I get that. All right, Christiane, will you kindly come forward before we have Alan Harris close us out? Give him a round of applause, please.
Joplin Morton Tatum, retired in the Marconi Hotel. A riff for Ted Jones, retrofitted along the boldest of American broadways. The evicted ones, feigning their least alert states, seldom dodge the topless manholes under fallen redwood refuge for the Rattler, flaunting Walden Keys at haunted Nordine Static. Tenderfoot scouts scamper up St. Helena, Diablo, Tamalpais. iPods blare dance club pulse, drive fangs deeper into the merit badge, scorning the animal rights advocate living in a blanket attached to the top of the UC Berkeley Campanile. The belfry not much higher or lower than Stanford's Hoover Dome, lording over the Civilian Exclusion Order number 96 photos of the march from Santa Anita through Pomona, past the slimy bridge that reflects feral daylight on the Hart Mountain Relocation Center, where the old rain lingers above the greater beast's last tooth, rooted in the Village Records vintage LP Wise One Snail Groove. The fences to mend are the dice to be loaded. Return of amphibians, of birds framed by ferns and pine needles, best foot backward where the ghosts of snow and wind, bare and cooler in a high mountain stream pool, spilling into dawn-lit pallid dappled mist, oxygenated and insulated hill folk snore and dream themselves into a moonlit.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you got on. Thank you. Thank you. And now Alan is going to close us out with part 2 of the exciting tale that he goes for. Wake up! Close it. And then we'll take care of these fine door prizes designed with your mind in mind.
Thank you. Part 2. The shelter where Arthur had been staying was a long, dark blue building that took up half a square block. I'd never seen beyond the two sides of the front of it, as I'd only driven by it and never, luckily, had any reason to go inside. The entrance, with its foreboding black metal door and hand-lettered signs prohibiting loitering and unauthorized persons beyond this point, had, as usual, a group of transient gentlemen of various shapes, sizes, and dishevelment milling about nearby. Some were engaged in intense conversation, while others seemed content to just lean against the wall, smoke a cigarette, and look at everyone else sideways. One guy, whose bugged-out, unfocused eyes suggested that he had found himself a reality more suited to his own taste than the one most of the rest of us shared, was off by himself doing some sort of slow, deliberate movement involving the swinging and circling of arms and legs. It seemed to have a logic only he understood, a kind of Tai Chi for the insane. There were a few cars parked in front of the entrance, so I pulled up to the curb several yards beyond it. Arthur had, along the way, asked me for a cable to charge his small, cheap smartphone, which had a cracked screen. I actually had one that worked for his phone, and also gave him an adapter that allowed him to plug it into the power source in the back of the cab. He was really getting his $15 worth out of me, but I didn't mind. I understand that needy people like Arthur have to get whatever they can out of everyone they encounter. It's how they survive. The trick is not to allow yourself to get too entangled in their webs of neediness. Arthur opened the door and said, "I'll be back in a few minutes. I just gotta get my stuff." "You have a lot of stuff?" "No, I don't fit in here. I'll be back in a few minutes." "Please be as quick as you can." "I'll be back in a few minutes." He didn't sound like he believed it himself. He went up to the metal door and banged on it. A couple of the sideways lookers adjusted their heads so they could check him out. In a moment, the door opened about halfway and Arthur disappeared inside. I turned on the radio and found a jazz station. I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes, settling in for what I thought might be a long wait for Arthur. I was not wrong. When I opened my eyes again, I saw that 10 minutes had gone by. I thought seriously about just leaving. After all, I was doing Arthur a favor by charging him a flat rate of $15 for a trip that would normally cost considerably more. And the longer he kept me waiting, the more devalued these coupons became. But then I saw his sad, deformed little phone sitting there in the back seat, still charging, and this made me feel obliged to stay. It was, after all, the man's phone. But I was willing to be taken advantage of only so much. Granted, probably more than most other cab drivers, but even I had my limit. And I was just about to reach it when Arthur reappeared at the passenger side window, not surprisingly, with none of his stuff. I rolled down the window. "I can't get into my room," Arthur informed me. "The guy who has the key isn't around. He said he would be when I called him before, but I don't know where he is now." "This counts as drama," I muttered under my breath. He looked up and down the street, I think for effect. "It shouldn't be too long," he said, looking at me sideways. I knew what he wanted. He wanted that $15 to buy an unlimited amount of my time. But the phrase, "time is money," was invented with cab drivers in mind. And I knew that the longer I waited to remove myself from Arthur's little universe, the more difficult it would be to do so. "Well, I can't wait around anymore," I told him. That ragged grumble of disapproval could be heard coming from his chest again. I held out 2 of the sheets of coupons he'd given me. "Here, take these back. I'm going to keep $5 worth. Call for another cab when you're ready." I would be operating at a considerable loss, but I didn't mind. I was having a good enough day that I could afford to be a nice guy to someone. He didn't take them right away. For several seconds, my arm hung out there in the space between us while he just looked at the coupons in my hand. Finally, with a sigh of resignation, he reached out and, with his fingertips, pulled them from my grasp. "Don't forget your phone," I reminded him. He opened the back door. His movements had taken on an almost trance-like quality, as if he was deep in thought. My guess is that he was trying to figure out his next move. He unplugged the charger cable from the power source and started to put it and the phone in his jacket pocket. My charger cable?" I reminded him. He smirked slightly as if he had a gas pain and held it out to me. As soon as I had the cable in my hand, I felt a sudden rush of freedom. He had everything that was his, I had everything that was mine, and he was out of my cab. I could just take off. Suddenly, Arthur held up one of the sheets of coupons. "Any chance I can get $5 cash for this?" "No," someone said, and I think that someone was me. The next thing I knew, I was halfway down the block. The truth is, I could have given Arthur $5 out of my own pocket for those coupons. I just turned them in for cash at the end of my shift anyway. My refusal was just a reflex action. I just needed to disengage. The last I saw of Arthur was his receding reflection in my rearview mirror. He was still standing in the same spot where I'd left it, looking up and down the street, counting something out using his fingers, checking his phone, planning his next move. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Harris in prose. Yeah.